Analysis now with Des Roches, a professor at the National Defense University. He's joining us from Norfolk, Virginia in the US. David, always good to have you on the program. So as we heard there from our correspondent Mohammed, the CIA chief in Doha, what's the message he'll be wanting to relay?
I think he'll try to find some sort of a deal that would meet Israel's concern about the hostages and Hamas's concern about postponing an offensive against Rafah. I think that he will point out the inevitable humanitarian loss that you would see in a military activity against a Hamas group that is dispersed among a displaced civilian population. And I think he'll try to point out to the Israelis that even if they achieve a tactical victory, their strategic position in the world is declining as a result of the casualties that will be inevitable in a military operation among a dispersed enemy, among a civilian population.
David, one would think, though, that this has been something that's already been relayed by the U.S. negotiators in these talks in Cairo, and it's then a matter of why can they not come to some sort of resolution? There are obviously sticking points. Many, though, saying it's Washington who can end this war completely by stopping the supply of weapons and aid to Israel. Is it really that simple that Washington just does that, or is this a lot more nuanced?
It's not that simple. It would take years for that to have an effect. And even then, Israel has its own indigenous arms industry. We saw a similar misconception when Saudi Arabia and the UAE were involved in combat operations on behalf of the Yemeni government against the Houthis in Yemen. And people have this idea that the United States can turn a partner on and off like a tap. But Israel is a sovereign nation, as are Saudi Arabia and the UAE. And when the United States, says, "Okay, we're going to stop this," it's an issue that could take years. I mean, we stopped military aid to Iran in 1979. They still fly the F-4 and the F-15 American-made jets that were made then. So it's a common misconception, I think. I think the stronger argument that the U.S. can make is to point out that, there are protests against Israel's actions all over the world. Israel is, to a large extent, dependent on some degree of global goodwill, and they're losing that. And the question is, what would be the incremental military gain of an offensive against, to destroy the last bit of Hamas's military capability versus the inevitable strategic loss of goodwill and the decline of Israel in the affections of the global populace?
Well, it seems that Netanyahu continues by saying that his main goal is to destroy Hamas completely. And he said even if there was a deal, that Israel will still go into Rafah. But when we talk about Hamas's military capabilities, we saw this attack on Sunday on the Karam Abu Salim crossing from Hamas. The fact that this type of attack can still happen 7 months into the war, what does it tell us about Hamas's capabilities?
Well, it actually bolsters Netanyahu's argument that, in order to defeat the ability of Hamas to carry out further attacks in Israel, the Israeli army will have to, at some point, occupy all of Gaza, to include Rafah, and systematically destroy the infrastructure, especially the underground infrastructure, which makes it possible to build and fire weapons like this. So Hamas's action actually strengthens Netanyahu's argument that you cannot have a secure Israel so long as Hamas maintains some sort of advanced military capability. It's very unfortunate because it undercuts the argument of those who are arguing that there should be some sort of cessation of operations before an Israeli occupation of Rafah.
It will be interesting to see how that Hamas attack influences those continued truce talks taking place now in Doha. Des Roches, always good to get your perspective. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.